Matter of fact, he is about to discover the awesome consequences of disobeying his God. As events unfold, he will try several new and creative ways to run from God, but to no avail. During his first attempt to run from God, he enlists for a short tour of sea duty in the Tarsus Navy. And he's stationed in the lower part of the ship where no one will find him. Suddenly a storm begins to form over the waters, and thunder clouds would paint the sky with the darkness of night. But the storm over the waters is a tiny thunder bumper compared to the tornado that's ripping through Jonah's soul. His heart is torn, his soul is wrenched. God has commanded him to do the one thing that he can never do, and he has to say no. His commander calls him up to the deck. The waves are folding their hands over the bow of their little boat, and it begins to sink. He stares out into the darkness, and he takes a long look at the storm, and he says to himself, "This is no ordinary storm. This is no coincidence. This is my God, and he is speaking to me out of the storm. It's too late to turn back. There's nowhere to go, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. It's time for a lesson from God." And the first lesson you will learn, Jonah, is that no matter how hard you try, you can run, but you cannot hide from God. Right. It doesn't matter where you go, Jonah, God is there. He is one step ahead of you, anticipating your next move or your plans. And it doesn't take God very long to take appropriate action. Many have tried to run from him, but they have failed. David said in Psalm 139:7, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, you are there. If I settle on the far side of the sea, even there, your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. I say to myself, surely the darkness will cover me and hide me. The night, but the darkness is not dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for the darkness is as light to you. You created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Now, like any little Jewish boy, Jonah had great expectations and desires and dreams for his life. But he didn't know that scuba diving without air tanks would be among his greatest achievements. For he's about to do a little dive for God. He's about to survive one of the greatest and longest and deepest diving expeditions ever attempted by mankind in his time. Catch a deep breath, Jonah! You're going under for the last time. His face is flushed with fear. His body trembles and shakes as he begins to realize the possibilities of what might happen. He feels the cold waters of the Mediterranean creeping into his body, and it doesn't take him long to figure out that if he's going to survive this little lesson from God, he's going to have to do something about it. He says to himself, "I'm going to do something about my problem." So he takes a long look around. He's down in the water, and he takes a long look around. The waves are crashing over his head, slapping him in the face. He's treading the water, trying to keep up. He finds himself surrounded by dolphins and sea snakes in the middle of an awesome storm. But there's something else in the water. Something he hasn't seen yet. Suddenly, it nudges him as it passes by. And he catches a glimpse of it passing by. An unbelievable fear comes over him as he realizes it's a 10,000-pound hammerhead shark. I don't know whether it was a shark or a whale. Does it matter? An unbelievable fear. Like most of us who are caught in unusual circumstances, Jonah wants to do something about his problem. What does he say? What is he going to do? So he whips out a textbook on marine biology. And he flings it open to the section on how to handle difficult fish. And begins to read. You know, it's the section that explores the inner cellular structure of marine life, especially the larger sea animals in the air. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Not even in the text, is it? Yet, it's exactly what many of us want to do when there's a critical problem in our lives. We want to understand it instead of doing something about it. We want to try to correct the symptoms and not the problem. That's right. Jonah doesn't need to run from God. He doesn't need to jump into the water. And he certainly doesn't need to study fish. There's only one thing Jonah needs to do. He simply needs to obey his God. He simply needs to surrender his will to God.